All right, everybody, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. And our first guest, like I said, is going to be Reverend Everett Kelley, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees. And we're going to be talking about the top 10 victories from the American Federation of Government Employees in 2021. He is the national president of the union, and he's an Alabama native, actually. He was president of the local union at Anniston Army Depot, the first black president of that local. We spoke to him about becoming the first black president of the local union at Anniston Army Depot last year in June, I believe it was. Or man, was it almost 2 years ago? It was June of 2020 that we spoke to him about that, and his journey to the presidency of his local union and now to the presidency of the national union is very, very cool. And I actually didn't realize this until I was reading his bio for this interview. As president of the local union at Anniston Army Depot, his membership more than doubled, like from 1,200 to 2,600 members at the Anniston Army Depot, which is very impressive. And that was still and that was like less than 10 years as local president. So that's very impressive. He was also national vice president for District 5, and nearly the same thing happened. Membership grew from 38,000 to over 51,000 in just 7 years.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And it's very cool to know that we have someone who's pretty close to us who is in a position of national leadership. It's always great to have some of our hometown boys and girls up there in charge.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and District 5 is the South. You know, I mean, that's Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Puerto Rico, Mississippi, Tennessee, and maybe South Carolina. I mean, these are not union-friendly states, and to get in just 7 years, like 13,000 new members as national vice. I mean, that's really, really, really cool.
It is, and I think President Kelley may be on the line now.
All right. Brother Kelley, can you hear us?
I can hear you good. How are you today?
Oh, man, I am doing great. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. President Kelley has been president of the National Union since 2020, and he's a very busy person. So, Brother Kelley, I appreciate you talking to us.
Jacob, the pleasure is mine, and it's good to always talk to you and bring my ties back to Alabama. It's just so good to hear you this morning.
Absolutely. It is very, very cool that we've got somebody from Alabama as president of the National Union. And I'm going to have to talk to you sometime, maybe off the line or on the show, about the growth that you saw in membership at Anniston and in District 5. What would you account like that success to really quickly before we talk about 2021?
Well, you know, Jacob, that is just one of the things that interests me, and that is seeing growth. You know, I went out every single day as a local president in 1945 at Anniston. I went out every single day asking someone to join the union, right? Because I understood the urgency of it. I understood the importance of it. And so every day I set out to talk to people about the union every single day. And so it was a constant recruitment for me. And not only for me, but we had a organizing team that we went out to do. You know, we did it on a monthly basis. We continued, you know, massive recruitment efforts and those types of things. And the result is, you know, we had great growth. You know, the same thing with the district. You know, I had a lot of support throughout the district as it relates to the local president. They were all engaged in growing the union. We had competition. You know, people love good, friendly competition. But we had some competition. People, you know, competed. We had what we called our champ program, where we did our organizing trophies, you know, at the end of every year. We did it for various agencies, and it was just a good tool that we use to enhance our organizing abilities and, make it fun all at the same time.
Well, I think it clearly paid off. So kudos to you, and I have appreciated your leadership at the national level. And so everybody, I believe, listening to the show knows that I'm a member of AFGE, and I'm a good union member. So when my union sends out newsletters, I try to read it. And by the way, our union's comms team is really, really good. Andrew Huddleston is the communications director, and they received an award for like best electronic communications and infographics from like a labor communications organization. And so they make it easy to read the newsletters. But near the end of December, they sent out a roundup of sorts that I thought would be a really good topic to talk to you about, because it contains some pretty big wins for federal employees. So first off, I guess I would be interested in what you think is the biggest win, if you had to pick just one, from 2021 for our union.
Wow, there are so many. But I think that, the biggest win, if I look at what AFGE gained overall, okay, I would have to say that the fact that the TSA, who has been considered second-class employees, if you will, for over 20 years. They have not had adequate pay. They have not had equal bargaining rights. But to get a determination from the secretary that says, we heard you, right? And we're going to grant to the TSA workers, some form of pay reclassification that would look like a GS pay scale, that we're going to give them, MSP appeal rights and other due process rights. To me, that was the major victory, because it says that, people are interested in all federal employees being equal, and that they should be paid adequately. They should be treated with fairness and dignity on the job. So I think, all of them are important. But if I have to celebrate at least one victory, that would be one that I would really celebrate and bring to the top.
I think a group of workers getting collective bargaining rights is a pretty big win. so that makes sense to me. Let's go through some of these on the list then. One of these from the newsletter said that presidential candidate Joe Biden had promised AFGE that he would repeal Trump's May 2018 anti-worker executive orders that were aimed at eliminating collective bargaining, due process, and workplace representation rights for federal employees. And he did that within 3 days of taking office, which was that was a big deal. So talk to us. What were those executive orders, and what kind of damage did they do to the federal workforce, to help us understand like how big a win it is to get rid of those?
Okay, and again, you asked me to choose one that I thought rose to the top. This was also at the top, okay? Mm-hmm. Because as you know, in May of 2018, under the direction of then President Donald Trump, there were 3 executive orders issued, right? Those executive orders were designed to bust unions. It was designed to deteriorate union growth, designed to kill the presence of the union on the work site. It took away the right for unions to be present at the work site in retrospect, by saying that you could not have an office space, unless you paid top price to rent the space. Where, mm-hmm. Also it eliminated a lot of our bargaining initiative. It gutted our contract, right? And as a result of that, members began to feel like the union had no power, right? Mm. And so they began to say, well, what's the use in paying union dues? And we began to see a decline in membership as a result of that. Had President Biden not came in and repealed those executive orders, then we could still be witnessing that type of decline. But we're grateful that President Biden did issue those executive orders that repeal the Trump anti-union executive orders, because they was completely designed to deteriorate our union, to minimize our ability to negotiate, because it will only give like so many rights to the union, and so many rights were taken away. What we're seeing right now is a lot of the contracts that we negotiated over the last 4 years. You see a lot of these anti-union tactics that were used in these contracts, and it's still detrimental, and we're having a hard time getting rid of some of that bargaining language that's in some of these contracts.
Right, and the a lot of these things are they were orders that even overstepped what some private sector unions have to deal with. Like, I mean, it's not uncommon that unions have some office space at the work site to do workplace representation. That's not an uncommon thing. And because federal employees' salary and benefits are set at the congressional level, there are taking away some of the few things that we can bargain over with our employers is detrimental to quality of the workplace, but also the ability of the union to represent its members, and that's something that private sector workers don't have to deal with. And because our salary and our benefits are set at the congressional level, it can kind of obscure the importance of having representation that is by and for and of federal employees. And so, it's important because we need a national organization to represent us to our congressional representatives, but we do also need to be able to fight at the local level for some of these more local level issues. And so rescinding that executive order is definitely very important.
Yes.
The next one that I wanted to ask you about was that President Biden fired the Trump-appointed 10 positions on the Federal Service Impasse panel, and he replaced them, the newsletter said, with highly qualified individuals who will rebuild the reputation of the embattled panel. You say that the FSIP had been used by the Trump administration to impose anti-worker, union-busting agency contract proposals on federal workers, and AFGE had called on the Biden administration to remove those members and appoint new ones. Can you tell us what the Federal Service Impasses panel is and why it's important?
Okay, the Federal Service Impasse panel is the entity that will hear and adjudicate issues where there is negotiability conflicts between the agency and management, agency and union. Okay, for instance, we are at impasse. We can't move forward, and there is an entity that make a decision as to if the union's position is correct or if the manager's position is correct. And what we were seeing was, years of language that have been determined by the Federal Service Impasse panel being re-looked, right, being re-evaluated, and new language coming out of this new panel, disregarding the years of precedents that have been set, and it was all done, to the detriment of the union, saying that, okay, for instance, that was one in particular where we was talking about, and we were concerned about whether or not, I guess we would say dues deduction was proper for the agency to deduct union dues, right? In our opinion, this was a tactic to destroy the union, right? Because if we can't elect dues, and so the panel decided something that was contrary to what had been decided, for years, right? So that's why it's so important that we have people on the panel that at least will look at current law and base their opinions and their decisions on law rather than, a political agenda.
Right. And so that's definitely, a win to have the whole panel replaced with people who are going to be looking at precedent, at policy, and not just trying to undermine workers and their representatives basically at every turn.
Right.
And the last one that I wanted to talk about, like I said, there are 10, and we have included the article in the description of our YouTube channel. It's AFGE's top 10 victories from 2021. I wanted to ask you about this last one before we wrap, and then wrap with an eye towards 2022. But this one here I thought was important, and like the Federal Service Impasse panel, there are a lot of people that aren't going to know like what it is. And so that's President Biden nominated 2 important positions for the Federal Labor Relations Authority, bringing an end to the Trump-appointed majority at the Labor Board. He nominated Susan Sue Grunman as a member of the 3-member FLRA and Kurt Rumsfeld as FLRA General Counsel, and he also nominated Ernest Dubester, who serves as the chair of the FLRA for a second term in the same position. The general counsel position was left vacant the entire Trump administration, which I did not realize, leaving federal workers in limbo since the FLRA could not prosecute agencies that violated their own policies and labor laws. While the union was encouraged by the president's choices, their nominations are still pending in the Senate. So what is the FLRA, and what have federal workers dealt with materially as a result of the Trump majority and the general counsel not being appointed?
Okay, well, Federal Labor Relations Authority, some know as, the FLRA, right? They are protecting the rights and facilitate stable relationships among federal agencies, the labor organization, and employees, while advancing an effective and efficient government through the administration, right? It's so important that we have a full house there, because just like you said, we had all of these cases sitting in limbo because we didn't have general counsel, we didn't have a full panel. Okay, now we have been asking that these positions, rather the Susan Grunman and the general counsel, be confirmed. And it takes a Senate confirmation in order for this to happen. We're saying that we think they are the right people, okay? At least the Grunman and the general counsel, I forget his name, but we think they are the right people because we believe that we are ready for someone to take the hymns here that will not be about the politics, but will be about making sure that the decisions that come down are based on law, based on practice, and not politics. That's what we got to have in order to have a successful labor management relations. We have to have that, and so we're looking forward and hoping that these people are confirmed, very soon.
Why have they not been accepted by the Senate yet? My understanding is that the Senate has been running full speed ahead with judicial nominations. Why do you think these are being held up?
And it's I don't know for sure. I know that we have been advocating to have this done. Matter of fact, we was hoping that it would have gotten done prior to the end of the year. But we have been talking to our friends in the Senate, and they have assured us that is the top of their priority to get this done, as soon into this year as it can be done.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully that happens as soon as possible. Wrapping with an eye to this year, what are the union's plans moving forward to continue racking up wins in 2022, to grow the membership? Like, what are some of our big goals nationally?
Well, while I talked a lot about the TSA employees and the determination that was given to them, that's, to me, is a great victory. However, it is not all that needs to happen here, because the way it's written, a determination, it can be overturned if we get a new president, right? So the objective here, in my opinion, because these employees have been considered, second class employees for so long. The objective is to not just have that written as a determination, but that it become a matter of law, right? So my objective this year is to make sure that we get that piece of legislation passed so that TSOs will have full bargaining rights under the law, and not just because we have someone in there right now that are concerned about those employees, because that can change with the turn of a new president.
Right.
Secondly, what we have seen across the board, almost in every agency, is that there's still, especially when it comes to labor relations, still holding on to some of the anti-Trump era, if you will, executive orders and that language. And so it become imperative for us, AFGE, to make sure that each agency understand the urgency of getting rid of those pieces out of the bargaining contract and look afresh at the initiative that has been laid out by President Biden, that says that he wants to be the most pro-union president that has ever been in history. We expecting that to not just be in words, but to be in deeds also. So that's going to be our primary focus, to make sure that it's not something I just said, but we can look across the board and we can see it being done.
Right. Yeah, he's I mean, unfortunately, and this speaks much less to Biden and much more to the rest of the presidents. I think that so far he has been the most pro-union president, at least in my lifetime. Certainly not more than FDR, but in my lifetime at least. But it's been a pretty low bar, and so we're hoping to see a lot more from him. Certainly, we've still got the labor movement has so many issues. And, right here in Alabama, we've got those coal miners that have been on strike for a long time, and we would love to see – I know that they would love to see the Biden administration coming to their aid in some form or fashion. But certainly, like you said, these are all big issues, and they came from – or these are all big victories for the union, for the American Federation of Government Employees and federal workers everywhere. And they came from pressuring, a large majority of them came from pressuring the Biden administration to act on behalf of federal employees. So I appreciate y'all's work in D.C. and all of our local union officers here and across the country that are fighting for working people. And so, yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure you got out there before we let you go?
Well, Jacob, I just want to say thank you to you for, this is a very important podcast that you do and the radio station there. I've been there live and I enjoyed it then and I'm enjoying it today. But, it's a way of getting information out to the labor world. When you brought up something, you talked about the coal miners, right? Mm-hmm. I've been to Alabama and addressed the coal miners, and I am with them 100%. But we also have a big initiative that's going to be coming up where I'm going to be asking every labor person in the state of Alabama to support us on this. And that is, making sure that the Amazon workers become unionized. We saw awesome. In that initiative, the management got involved. They played dirty pool, and we want to make sure that this time around, that every employee that works for Amazon know that they have a right to join the union, and without fear and without retaliation, because we're going to stand with them and we're going to be right by their side until they check that box that says union yes. Okay.
Well, brother, I appreciate that. And our labor council up here actually voted at our last meeting to send union members down there once a month at least through the election to make house calls with RWDSU. And so we appreciate your support and the support of other union folks in the country and in the state of Alabama. And I know that those folks down at Amazon in Bessemer do as well. And that's, this is that Amazon fight is, and you came out of an Army depot. You're a federal employee. There are a lot of people that may think that, what's it got to do with me working for the federal government or you representing federal employees, whether or not Amazon gets unionized. It's because we're all in this together, right? An injury to one is an injury to all. And that's the beauty of the labor movement, is that we're all in this together and we're all fighting for each other. And that's the way, or that's the way that it ought to be, at least. I see so many people like you and other folks doing that. And so I appreciate that. Thank you, Brother Kelley.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob.
All right. That was Reverend Everett Kelley. He is the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, representing more than 700,000 federal workers across the country. Came out of Anniston Army Depot, the first black president at that local, so we really appreciate his time.
Work sucks, we know, but you can make it better by organizing with your fellow workers. For more information, call or text the Huntsville Industrial Workers of the World at 256-651-6707.